and today we're back with another episode, and we have Supriya Chechi on in the meeting, and we're going to discuss. I think we're going to continue with the ninth chapter of the Gita, which is, I think, the
That's
last verse that we discussed was the fourth verse. Is that right?
sixth. No, I think we
Sixth
went
verse.
got as far as the sixth verse.
Sixth verse.
Okay. Thank
I'll
you,
just share my
Kanan.
screen. Yeah.
Hare Krishna and Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
This is, yeah, we finished with the sixth chapter. Basically, Krishna's in the sixth verse in the ninth
Ninth
chapter.
chapter.
Yeah. Krishna has been describing his mystic opulences, or what's called Yoga Aishwaram. How he maintains everything. Everyone is in him, but he's not in them. And like, although he maintains everything, he's not really maintaining everything, because meaning that it's not a burden for him, as we see in that image of old man Atlas, carrying the whole world. It's not like that. For him, this is like a breeze in modern language. For Lord Krishna, it's a breeze. So he's been saying these things, his mystic opulences. And now the last verse, the sixth verse which we read, yeah, he gives an analogy or like a simile, an example of how, here you have it, understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. Meaning there's this whole universe, this huge universe, and it looks like it's running of its own free will, and so many complex things are happening. People are taking birth, people are dying, taking rebirth, and so on. But it's all like the breeze. It has the right to blow freely in a huge expanse which we know as the sky. But the fact is that it is contained or restricted by the whole, like if you think of it like an overturned, upturned, overturned, not upturned, overturned, turned down bowl, it's contained within it. It's like that all these personalities and so many things are happening, lifetimes are playing itself out, but everything is happening under that, in the place of the sky, that will be him and his control, Lord Krishna's control. Material nature is so powerful, it can just kind of make whole cities vanish. See what happened in Pompeii when that volcano erupted. People were just frozen in lava, in whatever they were doing. Whole cities get destroyed, go underground. Material nature is very powerful, but that same material nature is contained completely in the power of the Lord. And he's slowly building up to the classic 10th verse. Wait till we get there, where he explains Maya Dhyakshena Prakriti Suyate sa Characharam. That is the same very powerful Prakriti. It does my bidding. Exactly as I ask it to move and play things itself out, she. Actually, it's a feminine personality here. So we wait till we come to that. So now here we have this sixth verse. In the seventh verse, we can move on to the seventh verse. If you will read the translation for us.
Yeah. So, O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature. And at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again.
Okay, so now he's really kind of like talking about the time factor, that we are talking of the millennium, that is basically a lifetime of Brahma. That's the context here, not in millennium as we speak of 1000 years or 2000, etc. At the end of the millennium, that is basically at the end of one lifetime of Brahma, all material manifestations enter into my nature. That means they all just kind of fold up or wind up and get back into him in his reclining form when he is lying as Mahavishnu. And at the beginning of the next lifetime of Brahma, by my potency, I create them again. So it's like he's playing or contrasting two very powerful entities. One is this hugeness and massive spread of time of Brahma's own life. And even that basically is nothing or is completely controlled by him. So if you see the purport, Kannan, if you can kindly read the purport.
Yeah. So the purport is the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material cosmic manifestation are completely dependent on the supreme will of the personality of Godhead. At the end of the millennium means at the death of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years, and his one day is calculated at this number is how
So
much?
many, yeah, of 3 years.
What is, yeah, 4.3 something, I think trillion or something like of our 3 years. His night is of the same duration. His month consists of 30 such days and nights, and his year of 12 months. After 100 such years, when Brahma dies, the devastation or annihilation takes place. This means that the energy manifested by the Supreme Lord is again bound up in himself. Then again, when there is a need to manifest the cosmic world, it is done by his will. Bahushyam. Although I am one, I shall become many. This is the Vedic aphorism done in the Chandogya
Chandogya
Upanishad
Upanishad, yeah.
6.2.3. He expands himself in this material energy and the whole cosmic manifestation again takes
So I think he's giving us, Lord Krishna is giving us this information to drive home his terrific power and greatness, terrifyingly overpowering power. Usually, we become aware of the power of God only in moments of great tragedy, when we realize we are utterly helpless. Nothing, no prayer, nothing is working. Whatever we are praying will stay, is going to be snatched out of our hands. And it's only then, because we are just kind of forced and pushed into a corner and shown our own helplessness. And if we survive that particular catastrophe, then it makes a strong impact and sometimes gets people to question what is the meaning of this life and why was I given a second chance? What am I supposed to do? I almost died, and so on. So these catastrophes in our times, sometimes if you even see movies like, in this Titanic, there's I don't mean the one with the famous Leonardo DiCaprio and the Kate Winslet or anything. I mean and there were TV mini series was done some years before that. And I remember this scene where the Titanic is clearly going down, and there's a pious Christian family, several children, and pious and devoted husband and wife. And the wife grasps very quickly what's happening. The husband, he can't believe his eyes, that after being God's man and following all his instructions and going to, not just going to church, but living out the life. I think they're some kind of preachers. So he is having a hard time believing that they are not amongst those who were saved. And basically, it was the injustice of the system within the Titanic. The boats were not enough to take everybody, and the business class passengers were, as always happens, were given, as often happens, were given priority. The women and children were given priority, but specifically the higher, the business class passengers. So these are poor travelers. They're trying to move. They were sailing from England to America to make a new life for themselves, maybe to Canada. So the husband has a tough time, but the lady, it's very, what's the word for it? It makes a very big impact when you see how in a matter of seconds she has to process and come to terms with the reality that they are going to go down with the Titanic. She and her 4 children lovingly raised, and her husband, and what can be done? So she comes to terms a little faster and she thanks him for being such a dutiful husband and father. He's still not getting it, he's still not understanding. So in moments like that, then I was watching another, the present Queen Elizabeth. There's a series called The Crown.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Crown, yeah. So the Queen Elizabeth, the man she marries, that is Prince Philip. He's basically of some German origin, and he comes from a kind of real tragedy struck family. So amongst the horrors, his mother is in a mental institution. His father, I'm not sure, anyway or something. His favorite sister, her husband, her 2 children, her newborn baby, all go down in a plane crash. And he and the moments are the shown, the lady, the sister that is fully pregnant for, I think, the third time, whatever, boards the flight to attend a royal wedding in England. And he's still a young man. He's not yet grown, young boy. He's not yet in boarding school. He's not grown up enough to have married the Queen Elizabeth. So they board this flight, and suddenly she goes into labor. A baby is born. to facilitate the labor, they change, the pilot changes, it's a small plane, changes the route so that they can be offloaded somewhere where some medical attention may be required. The weather changes, the weather goes bad, they can't land where they are, and then they run into rough weather and they crash and everybody's dead. So again, those kind of moments, like maybe we see through the eyes of those who are the actors who are playing out the drama on screen, how helpless and how powerful material nature is. What can you do if the weather turns foul and is going to overturn a flight or a plane that was going quite well in the hands of an expert pilot? What can you do if the Titanic goes and run by an extremely arrogant captain who took all kinds of risks to show off and make history, goes and hits an iceberg and then just breaks into two, the hull hits and takes down so many relatively innocent people. So through the eyes of these people who are suffering, we can see how powerful material nature is. And even more, that material nature Krishna is claiming is nothing, because it all folds up when the time comes and gets back into him and comes out again at the time of a new Brahma. Now, Brahma, mind you, is the highest post that one can achieve, a living entity or a human being in the material world. That doesn't mean just our world, but the middle planets, the middle planets in the material part of the universe. Then there is the hellish planets and the heavenly planets above. It's the highest post that anyone could aspire for and qualify themselves by doing everything very pakka and properly and not making any mistakes, and so many lifetimes of that they can get to the post of Brahma. But that Brahma is also look at this, look at the span of his lifetime. That's enough, that itself is mind boggling. But even that Brahma finally is helpless, because when he dies everything just folds up, his whole creation folds up back into the body of the Lord. And the same Brahma, in another verse which is coming from scripture, it says, the Brahma and the little ant, whether it is the powerful Lord Brahma or the little ant, they are under the three modes and they are subjected to suffering. So because Brahma also undergoes bewilderment and delusion, and Brahma also makes mistakes in judging the power of the Supreme Lord Child Krishna and the missing calves and hiding the calves and so on. So idea being that basically telling us how powerful the Supreme Lord himself is. And one way or the other, we have to accept that fact and to surrender. Next verse 8, if you will read. The
Yeah.
whole concept.
So the whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again, and under my will, it is annihilated at the end. This material, so the purport of that is
Yeah.
this material world is a manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as the Mahat Tattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, entered. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes. And into each universe, the Lord again enters as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Each universe is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Shirodakshaya Vishnu, and that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here, he enters into everything. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature, and as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. Men, animals, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created, because whatever desires the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly indicated here by the word avasham that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again. All this is done simply by His will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after creating different species of life, He has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it.
Okay. One thing here, this huge chronology of is given of how universes come and go and yugas come and go. We are exceptionally lucky because it is not as if Lord Krishna appears in every Dwapara Yuga of each cycle of the four yugas. He appears only in every 28th Dwapara Yuga of each of these cycles. You know, there is Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, and then again Satya Yuga. It's not as if every time he comes. So we are relatively extremely fortunate because Lord Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago. There is still Mathura to go and see. There is Vrindavan. There are records left. And there are places where he played out his pastimes. There are deities that manifested and are worshipped even today, and so on. So the whole idea is that if we miss this chance of understanding what is what, we don't know when again we are going to get that chance. If we just go back, fold up, come back again and again, and then at the end of a lifetime of Brahma, we all just wherever we are with our karmic bank account, we've not got out, supposing we've not got out of the cycle of birth and death yet, and we just go back into the Lord of the Supreme, the body of the Supreme, we just like drawn back, and then we take birth again. It's going to be a very long haul. So this is, we are in exceptionally fortunate times. And then Lord Chaitanya himself again comes only in some very rare follow-up of the Kali Yuga that follows the Dwapara Yuga. If Krishna himself comes only in the 20th Dwapara Yuga of each of these cycles, similarly, Lord Chaitanya comes very rarely, and that's again he has come and gone just 500 years ago. Relatively, when you think of cosmic time, this 500 years and 5,000 years is not so bad because things do survive. There are places you can go and see and touch and feel and refer and cross check. There is manuscripts. There are, of course, you can't have people alive from those times, but we really
It's
extremely.
yeah, it's actually in I'm just reading when I'm reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'm in this chapter where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visits Vrindavan, and he's going to Vrindavan he reaches Vrindavan, he's taking a bath in, I think it's in
Yamuna.
that yeah,
Yep.
Yamuna, and Govind, I think Govinda Kund. He takes a bath in the is it Govinda Kund or Radha Kund? He takes a bath.
Govind Kund. No, no. There
Govind,
is
Govind.
Govind Kund, but that is near Govardhan. Radha
Oh,
Kund and Manasi Ganga. But that's all the
ah.
Govardhan route.
So,
Anyway, go on.
so as he's taking a bath, I think he wanted to go and pray to the Gopala deity, I think.
Okay.
And so this was that part in the story where he's like he wants to pray to Gopala deity, but then,
Yeah. Sorry, we got cut off.
can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, now I can hear you. In between, it
Okay.
froze. Yeah, go
Oh,
on.
okay. So, he wanted to go and pay respects to the Gopal deity, and the Gopal deity was in this village. The temple is in the village. And this village, there was some news that the Turkish soldiers would come to this village to invade. So then the
Okay.
villagers had to take the deity and then go to a different place. And then um, this. So, but
Yeah, yeah.
what he describes, was the place was, and so after all of that, finally they're able to install the deity back, and he's able to pray. And for him, that whole experience is like he describes, when he's like going all the way to Vrindavan, he says now that I'm entering Vrindavan and now that I'm praying to this, the ecstatic love of God increases like multiple times
Mm,
because the places and the places they like he described like this is the place that when he's like in front of the Govardhan hill, like this is the place where Krishna enjoyed his pastimes with the cowherd boys,
yeah.
yeah, with the singer, and then he goes to Radhakund. This is where Krishna enjoyed playing had a sporting time with Radha. And when he goes to this, what is it? When he Gopality also, he's like, I mean, he prays to gives a special kind of prayer because Gopala is from that deity is from there, so he gives a special kind of prayer in that. but he also describes like how it's so special that that he can like he's not from Vrindavan, but he's from Bengal, right? And
Right,
he
right.
goes so going there. It's like for him, it's like this big experience because this
Mm,
place Vrindavan is very special for him.
mm.
So like the
It's
place also becomes very special for people like like they will
who
go and
follow.
visit places. Yeah.
Actually, even today, I pray that you will get a chance sometime to you can also visit Vrindavan because there is something so special about the place. Of course, today it's people who joined ISKCON 20, 30 years ago say those days it was relatively very peaceful and peacocks were walking down the road, and now there is a spillover from Delhi and the mess that Delhi is, land sharks and traffic and so on, but still it is so special. A friend who is originally from Trivandrum, a Malayali lady, who's been 8 years in Mayapur, she's just done a shift to Vrindavan about 1 week ago, so she keeps sending voice messages saying she's been to Vrindavan before, but she shifted her service from the Mayapur temple to here. So partly health reasons, there is some clinic and some treatment she's taking, and Vrindavan will mean less pressure in terms of the services she has to do because the temple is
Mhm.
smaller. Whereas Mayapur, there are so many deities and so many garlands to be made and so much cooking to be done and so many people. So she's
I
off.
I
Yeah,
just had one. This might be like it's not anything related to
yeah, go
the
on.
Gita or anything, but I just had like I mean, why did ISKCON put like I know that Prabhupada is from Bengal, but uh, I've always wondered this like why the headquarters of ISKCON couldn't be in like Vrindavan, like where
No,
uh,
it's because of Lord Chaitanya having taken birth in Bengal.
oh
This
that's the
whole
reason.
movement and the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is something given specially by Lord Chaitanya. It is a particular easy medicine or gift he brought that cut
Hmm.
through all caste barriers and rituals and mantras and stotras and temples. So that is really coming from Lord Chaitanya, who took birth in Mayapur in Yoga Pit.
Oh.
That's the reason.
So the Hare Krishna mantra it's coming from him basically.
Coming, yeah, it existed in the Vedas, but it the other way around. You will always see it is Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya
He
turned it
switched
around
it.
and propagated Hare Krishna, saying that Rama is still difficult to approach for the conditioned soul because he is Maryada Purushottam, which means you have to follow lot of proper behavior to be able to access his mercy. Krishna is not like that. He is Leela Purushottama. That means he likes his Leelas and he likes all varieties of love and affection that's given to him. He is naughty and he breaks the rules himself and he is very highly reciprocative. So Lord Chaitanya really pushed this mantra, and the Kali Santarana Upanishad speaks of a personality like yellow-bodied who will come and propagate the Kali Hare Krishna Mahamantra as the only saving grace that is there in this miserable age of Kali. So all that
Mhm.
happened in the first kirtans, the first harinams, harinam meaning procession, chanting processions, all happened in Mayapur and the Bengal area. Only later he goes. Lord Chaitanya actually also goes to discover and dig out. He sends the Goswamis to do that job even after he has left this planet, to dig out the pastime places and the famous temples of Vrindavan, which had fallen to destruction and ruin under Islamic rule.
Mhm.
Because the Mughals came in the years that followed Lord Chaitanya's appearance, we naturally a lot of this had to go underground and deities had to be hidden and taken away to Rajasthan and hidden there, and so many people lost their lives and so on. So Lord Chaitanya came to revive that whole worship, that already so many lovely deities were there and now in secrecy. That's why you have the Goswamis, they build these major temples in, then Rajas come forward to sponsor because the Rajas knew from their parampara and through their family history or whatever had been passed on to them that there was an age like that. And then when this Muslim invasions came, it all had to go because of a clash of faith and so on. So they pitch in, they bring the money, they bring the marble, and they bring the jewels and the opulent building and construction. So Lord Chaitanya then proceeds to Vrindavan to do this job of reviving the consciousness of Krishna worship and setting up
Hmm.
places. But Vrindavan is,
That yeah, that makes sense
you just
because
have to be there in,
yeah,
evening time, and when the bells, 500 and 5,000 temples are there, small, small, not all built by ISKCON at all. And they all are Vishnu or Krishna worship temples. Most,
there's also a Shiva temple, no, next to that
yeah,
somewhere.
Shiva is always considered like a dham,
The
like the
it's like the
guardian,
gate, the guardian of
gatekeeper.
the
Exactly.
gatekeeper. Yeah.
Yeah, Dhameshwar Shiva, both, even entrance to Mayapur, there is one, he takes on that role. And it is said that even when the Rasa Leela was going on, he takes the role of being a guardian outside to make sure who is allowed into, who is allowed and not allowed in, because only really qualified people are allowed into the Rasa Leela. But Vrindavan, I mean, you have to be there in the evening. You have to just walk around on the roads. It's just magical. But of course, there's one, like a disclaimer or one word of caution, because it's the dham with lot of potency. They warn you to be very careful. Prabhupada used to say, don't stay more than 3 days, because you may unknowingly do offenses and get terrible reaction. Now, because the dham's job is to purify us, a lot of people who go to any dham, need not be Vrindavan, they go to Badri, they go to Kedar, they go to Tirupati, they invariably come back and suffer some physical ailments. Part of it is naturally when you travel, people get diarrhea for about 10 days, people get, and so on. But I know of some extreme cases. There's a lady from Germany, she is called Aditi, that is her Diksha name. She landed in Vrindavan as just a naive tourist. I don't think she even knew anything about ISKCON. And she says they had lived a very sinful life because of their ignorance. So she came with plenty of money in her hand and independence in her early 30s, and she came to Vrindavan and she was very happy. But in no time, a gang of monkeys attacked her.
Hmm.
Monkeys are everywhere in Vrindavan. I think they bit her. Monkeys are really scary there. They say carry a danda and just.
There's like people always look at the monkeys and they think that okay, the size wise you can take on a monkey, but monkeys are very difficult to deal with because
No.
there's a video of a I've seen a video of a monkey like on YouTube. He literally gets angry. I mean, this man actually doesn't do anything wrong. He's just like looking at the monkey and he's like very affectionately calling out to the monkey, but the monkey just jumps onto his head and literally takes out the scalp of his head on the top of the head. No, just rips out this part, and the guy is like left and doesn't know what happened. Alright.
Mm,
Monkeys are really strong and powerful, so it's like you shouldn't mess with you shouldn't mess with the
that's
monkey.
right. Shouldn't mess at all. And you know what? Some of these ladies, they feel they have to feed the monkeys or something, so start
Yeah,
offering
I don't.
monkeys, and the monkeys fight amongst themselves and then attack the person. I think something like that happened with her. So the monkey biting and monkey attack. Naturally, someone took her to a local hospital, gave her rabies injections, anti-rabies. But she got a reaction to it, and she says she was lying with high fever for 10 days, and she really should have died. She doesn't know, because nobody knew of her, no way to reach Germany and get any help. She survived that, and then she became very serious about her spiritual practice and does a lot of editing, audition for all kinds of services for senior other devotees who want to bring out books or their tape ministry and so on. So both, not so much in Mayapur. Mayapur, that kind of reaction, people do fall sick when they come back. That's because the water and the climate and the food. But Mayapur is Audarya Dham. That means basically there's a lot of free. Like now the government is fighting about freebies being given before the elections for by different parties. Freebies, so a lot of causeless mercy there. And lot is overlooked because that was the special mood of Lord Chaitanya. He didn't want to punish the wrongdoers because then there is no hope at all. Whereas in Vrindavan, you have to tread a little more carefully, lot more carefully, because unknowingly you get into some fight or squabble with a rickshawala. Naturally, you feel he's cheating, or then these things become big issues. And apart from, like I said, attacks from monkeys and so on. But otherwise, it's lovely. There are still peacocks. There is pure sand in whole areas. There's a Vrindavan Institute, like the Mayapur Institute where I teach. The Vrindavan Institute is in a very beautiful part. They built it out of mud. There's mud classrooms, and even in the extreme heat, they have water coolers but not ACs. it gets extremely hot there. There's a Goshala nearby. There's a Tulasi Vanam. There are samadhis of some few ISKCON Swamis who passed away. Their bodies or their ashes are there. It's a very beautiful setup altogether. I haven't been now for 5-6 years, but altogether really, I mean, no
Once
words.
maybe once once I'm able to get like a because I don't get any leaves for
I
more than like
understand.
3 4 days. So if I know if I there's like I think if I work for a year, at the end of 1 year, I think I'll get like they'll always give they'll allow you to take leave for like a week or a week and
I
a half
see.
or something like that. So if I do get an opportunity like that, then there are these packages that I've seen where you can do these like pilgrimage packages where you can
Yeah, yeah,
go
yeah, yeah.
North Indian pilgrimage tour basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you can all you'll be basically going to all these places like Vrindavan, Mathura, and all these places. And all that. So maybe I'll take something like that
And
and
they
then
will
just
take care
go
of
on that.
everything. Like they will
Yeah,
do the bookings,
yeah,
they will give you the food. That's best.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Because
you always,
otherwise, if I have to like do everything, I'll be like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. It's best to
absolutely.
go the package only.
Yeah, nowadays there
So
are very
nice.
good packages. I'm also hearing that, like they
Yeah.
take a cook along and who gets local produce and cooks whatever the people are used to. If they are coming from Kerala and they don't like this North Indian kind of khana, then it is Kerala. I heard about this with some ISKCON group picked up a cook like that from Delhi when they went to Badri. And nobody had stomach issues because earlier when they went, the oil didn't suit them, the potatoes didn't suit them, and so on. So yeah, I think something like that, such a nice incentive. It's good to wait and to build up your serious intention and then go there, and I'm sure Krishna will reciprocate. So definitely, I mean, this Vrindavan Mathura track, definitely Mayapur, and if you're going to Mayapur, must go to Jagannath Puri, which is just overnight from Howrah. All right, so the verse 8, the next one. Uh, oh, did we read that? Yeah, we just
We read
finished.
the purport.
Yeah,
So
we
yeah,
finished the purport. So we can move on. He's just going on. So we have not read
purport. Yeah, we read the purport. But probably we didn't go in depth of the purport. We just
the material world is a manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality. Okay, this has been explained several times. Fine. How he lies down in the causal ocean as Mahavishnu, then universes come emanate out of his breathing, and then into each of those universes he enters as Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu, or else meaning from whose navel a lotus appears, and inside that lotus Brahma sits down and meditates, and he is given the qualification to start creating. Each universe is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Shirodaka Shai Vishnu, that is the Vishnu that enters into each human being, the four-armed form as the super soul. So three Vishnus. The one that first lies down in the causal ocean, that then he from when he is in his deep yoga nidra, this is the Lord Padmanabha kind of rupam here, that is classic, is in his deep transcendental sleep. From his breathing many universes are said to come out, emanate, and each of those universes he again, that same Vishnu form gets in and sits down there as not sits down, lies down again as type of Vishnu, as I'm just repeating for the sake of clarity, from whose garbha or navel a lotus comes out, and within that lotus flower is Lord Brahma, Chaturmukha Brahma, sitting there to meditate and do dhyanam until he meets the Lord and is told how to go about creating. And then into each bit of that creation, the same Mahavishnu enters again as Super Soul. So that's the we are not going to just read it. Uh, I've just summarized it, paraphrased it. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature, and as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. So, what that means that everything we do now, we are really creating opportunities and bodies for ourselves in the future. And I was listening to a lecture where it said, sometimes we have a tendency, especially in families, on family discussions, maybe more than in regular other discussions between friends, we tend to blame an ancestor for certain wrong decisions. and be and say it's all because of that person and that decision. The decision was just so wrong, and even today there are ripples in 3 generations later. How did he think? What did he think he was doing, and how did he get away with it? We go on and on. So some in a lecture they were pointing out to me that that person, wherever he is now, that ancestor in some other lifetime, in some other body, is going to get the negative effect of our cursing or complaining or blaming. Similarly, someone else somewhere who has been born some years down the line after our previous life is probably blaming us for whatever we were in that previous life, for decisions we took probably in good faith, but that have ended in all disaster or chaos or unhappiness in families and so on. And the more they blame us, we still get that same reaction now in the form of one suffering or the other. So we need to become very aware of the cyclical nature. Cyclical is not the right word.
But
The
it's actually like kind of I mean the point also you made is like it's valid in I think all aspects, because generally people like to blame a lot of people for anything, like even if it's not family also, like even if you're with a group of friends also,
yeah,
if something goes wrong, they will, either like the other person, even if you haven't done something wrong, you haven't done something wrong, the other person might blame you for something wrong before you can put before you can put the blame. I've noticed that this happens in like in almost all situations where there's like a negative reaction to something, where there's some kind of negativity that's there. There will be like even at work somewhere somebody will say that some manager says that this person didn't like, they're talking to somebody else and they're saying that they didn't do the work properly. That person will say it's because of this, and that person will say it's because of that. So it will keep going on like this. And people, like, in one sense, like, people are not willing to accept that, okay, that, that they could make a mistake, that they can make a mistake in that, they're not always perfect. And this happens, I think, in almost every situation. So in family, what happens is that we are like, if somebody's like passed away, then they can't really talk. They
they
can't
can't
defend
speak
themselves.
up and defend
They can't
themselves.
they can't
Exactly.
speak up and defend themselves. So the people who are like alive, they're able to like they don't want to offend the other person. So they will not say anything. They will not say that, okay, it probably could be you. But because they're family, they don't want to offend the other person. So they will it's very easy to like put the blame on somebody that's already passed
He
away.
was passed away.
But in reality, I think, like, it doesn't help, because like they were living in that time and they did what they could, and they lived their life the way they did. Now, like, for example, like in the Gita, like after reading the Gita, I've come to this realization that, like, destiny doesn't choose how how things go. Like, you choose your destiny. Like, you decide how things go further. Like, nobody can tell you how things will run, right? Like, nobody can tell you like how things work, but you can decide like how things go forward. So I think that is what is like the most important, because I think nobody, even of family members or friends, I don't think anybody can like tell you what how things should go forward. I think, and the people who have passed away, we just need to, like, I guess, offer our respects and just say that, that they did what they could, the best that they could, and that's all that, we have to
Yeah,
give
because
respect. Yeah.
otherwise, absolutely, because otherwise it actually hinders them or harms them in whichever lifetime now they are playing out. And similarly, you take that whole situation and flip it around. We obviously in our previous birth were somewhere in some family and we did certain things and we left certain descendants after us. If they are going on blaming us for the person we were in that previous lifetime and the decisions we took that are still impacting them, unfortunately, then that is going to hamper and harm us a lot. That is actually what is called bad karma. People try to do parihara puja to get rid of that karma, because someone is cursing and blaming us for some decisions we took in good faith that they are still paying the price for. We have already passed on, like you said, we are not there in that body. We can't speak up and defend and explain what were the reasons. That is going to really hamper, hinder, harm us. And so one way to overcome this, like you said, is to stop that blame game ourselves. Someone said there is a limit for a blame game. You know, usually we end up blaming parents. This is very often. Every generation does it. And even for that, there's a limit. You can't just hold parents responsible for all the things that have gone wrong in our life. Very rarely is that valid or correct. So this, when we read these paragraphs and these verses in the Bhagavad Gita that talk of how the time span that the jiva takes in and out of different bodies, and if they are still there in the cycle of birth and death, when Brahma's death comes and the universe folds up, that jiva, that is say us, goes back into the body of the Supreme Lord, and then it's all just like scary. It's such a long haul. If we keep reading this particular, which starts with now, if you read now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into the second para. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature. And as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions.
Yeah.
Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. Men, animals, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created. Because whatever desires a living entity had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It's clearly indicated here by the word avasam that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again. And all this is done simply by His will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After that, and after creating different species of life, He has no connection with them. Creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with.
Mm. So this, in these last two, three sentences, the Lord is showing a very striking impartiality or neutrality. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it because He's just sanctioning that is their wish, so let them have it. Remember when Srila Prabhupada was on a beach walking, and some of his disciples are pointing out that, you know,
Uh,
how people like to surf, surfers, I
uh,
think, I'm not sure. And Srila Prabhupada says something like if that's all they do, especially in their retirement stage, then it is very likely they will get a body that is suitable for water because they love it. So naturally we have a certain attraction. Some people like to hike in the mountains, some people, and to a great extent it's good to satisfy that. It keeps us healthy, it keeps us happy. But especially when if you are at a stage in your life where you have to be concentrating, I mean death is not so many years away because you're already quite elderly. If at that stage, as often happens, people just sit passing their time doing fishing, and those who are healthy or fit enough, they do surfing, then they're asking for trouble because it will be like what happened to Jada Bharat. That not Jada Bharat, Bharat Maharaj, that all the time you're thinking only about the deer, then you get the birth as a deer. It's so it's crystal clear because the Bhagavatam is telling us this. So we need to control our likes and dislikes, not to completely stand them out because that's not possible, but to guide our likes and dislikes and try to hitch them onto the Lord in some way or the other. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, which means the Lord is not going to interfere. You very fond of this particular type of activity or tastes or diet, then you get a fitting body to satisfy those desires. Scary. It's really quite scary. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and I don't think even the most rational and logical Western type of mind can any longer challenge this business called taking birth again, reincarnation, because so much information. People are not shy any longer of that topic. There may be some sensational. When we were growing up years ago, there was this cinema that called the Reincarnation of Peter Proud, and it was just about a man who was a young man repeatedly having dreams of being killed by a woman, and being drowned or something in a lake, or when he was skating or something. And then he happens to watch some TV series and sees pictures of Michigan, where he recognizes a lot of the scene as where this happened, where he was killed in a previous. Then he's supposed to go back there and trace out the woman who's still alive, quite elderly, and so on. So so those were very early attempts to try to address this issue, the reincarnation of Peter Pratt, because people were even scared to come out openly and say it just might be possible that there is something called rebirth. It was considered very silly and sentimental and not
Taboo.
scientific. Yeah, that's right, taboo. But now it's not like that. A lot of these cases are coming up. There are like little girls somewhere in Rajasthan who are born and they
Yeah.
remember little boys. And
There's
recently,
even this story. There's a story of a small boy who was born in America, like in a family, and then he reportedly knew the family of his previous birth. He said that something somebody, I think his parents, mother only asked him to, I think he jokingly said that, that you are not my mother is somebody else.
I see.
And that story is actually, I'm not sure if it's because I heard it on the Wisdom Sages podcast that Raghunath Das, right? They were talking
Okay.
about this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they were saying, let me just see, reincarnation
Right.
in America. It's also there on Netflix, sort of.
Uh-huh.
Um, Not this one. I don't remember which one it was. Because okay, there's a documentary uh, which talks about. It's an old documentary, but it's not in this. It's in like in the Wisdom Sages, one of the
Right,
episodes.
right. Uh-huh.
They talk about this. It's be very difficult to find that episode on this because it's a real. I don't know when, but I remember it was a little while back where they had I think an entire episode dedicated on just reincarnation stories, and
Okay.
it's
Nice.
quite fun. It's quite fun actually because like uh, is it I'm not sure if it will
Okay,
be
if
there.
you find it, yeah, if you find it, you just send me the link to that particular episode later.
Yeah. So these are the videos that they have where they're discussing topics related to reincarnation. Is it possible that we can be reincarnated in the past? How
Okay.
do you practically take pleasure in the self? Is there anything that you think I should consider before approaching it? So they have this. So I think maybe it was in this that they discussed this. I'm not. How much was I think. Yeah, so I think it's in this. It could be in this. I'm not sure, but I'll send you the link anyways. As I find
Okay.
it, I'll send you the link.
Yeah, but that just kind of confirms these reincarnation
Yeah.
discussions. They confirm what Krishna is saying, that the creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. The latest, maybe it's been around for a while, kind of sensational video that someone sent to me is of a boy who was born in the UK, who from the time he was 2 years started talking of how he was a princess who had been killed in a car crash, and his name is Billy Campbell, and his parents are ordinary folks. So initially they didn't take it seriously. This is because obviously Diana died 1997 or something. It's now 20 years. That boy from the age of 2 he started saying that he was a princess. He doesn't know, he didn't know this past present difference, and that there was a car crash and sirens. And in his baby talk they didn't know where he'd got it from, because they weren't exposing him into to these kind of um, TV information, this kind of television information about the death. And in any way, it was so many years since the tragic crash of Princess Diana Spencer, Lady Diana. So then he went on. Apparently, there was for and against opinion that this is fake, and they have coached him and so on. Then he went on a little later when he could talk a little more. He started to talk about a brother he had, And that brother completely fits the personality of John Spencer, Lady Diana's step-brother, I think, who apparently even Prince Charles never bothered to meet or get to know. And the boy was talking about sirens, because this is true. At the time of death, Lady Diana is supposed to have been briefly conscious and have said, "My God, what happened?" And then she blacked out. But she would have heard the sirens and the emergency, the ambulance, and so on in Paris. So Billy Campbell is the name of this boy, and now he's, I think, 5 or 6. So so many such cases are coming up, which I don't think people can any longer neglect or completely ignore or stamp out this whole logic of reincarnation and rebirth, and that supports everything that we're reading here. Now, if you go on to verse 9, Krishna is once again saying that he does all this work, but it doesn't really affect him. So you have here the translation. uh, O
Yeah.
Dhananjaya, all this work, that is, imagine, he's supervising all this creation and destruction and annihilation and recreation and so on, cannot bind me. Means he doesn't, not as if he has to feel tied down by it. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral in the heart of each of these jivas, granting them whatever they had actually hankered for, and according to their qualification to get what they hankered for. It's not as if just say we want to be born in a very wealthy family, automatically we get it. If we don't have the karma for it, then obviously we don't get it. So, Odananja, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as so neutral. So here, it's important because I know of a leading senior devotee and scholar now maybe into his 70s, who joined in his early 20s, called Ravindra Swarup. That's his Diksha name. But he was a research student in some American university, inclined towards philosophy and theology and all this. He was born in the Christian faith, attending Catholic churches, as far as I know, but church programs. But he was not convinced that the definition of God, of the definition they gave of God, just as a kind of fearful, punishing God and so
Hmm.
on. And somehow he came to Hare Krishna and he read some book where Krishna is described as always blissful and playful and simply all the time enjoying and playing from morning to evening. Not morning to evening, I mean in. Meanwhile, his Shakti and under his supervision, all this creation, annihilation, and everything is going on. That made complete sense to him. And he joined overnight because he said, then this is a real God. How is God God if he is burdened like us by all the creation, and how he is morose or he is angry and punishes and so on? So this for him made complete sense, because that is Krishna as Satchit Ananda. That is, he is Sat, he is eternal. Chit, he is full of knowledge. Chit is, means knowledge. Ananda means he is always blissful. So the Satchitananda, that is his Rupa, and we as Jivas in our purest state, because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, it's just that now we are so confused and so forgetful of that connection that we are not Sat, meaning we don't even realize we are eternal, so we're always frightened when the life will come to an end. Chit, we are full of knowledge, but we are often acting in complete ignorance, the way we react to situations. And our fearfulness comes from our ignorance of eternal knowledge. And Ananda, we are hardly ever really blissful unless we are working on ourselves and cleaning our heart and improving our consciousness and improving our connection with the Lord. So that Satchit Ananda quality that true God has, which the Supreme Lord Krishna definitely has in his incarnations, but most particularly him, that he's always blissful, always playful, always doing his leelas and thoroughly enjoying himself. That is a quality that actually even we have. It's just that we've lost the connection or become forgetful, so we don't display these qualities. And when we are eventually properly situated in our true identity and in our constitutional, ultimate constitutional position, having overcome all our failings in whichever lifetime, that is the state we are. It is said we will know that is Satchitananda. And you will see pure devotees or advanced devotees being able to show that same quality. In the Bhagavatam, you talked about the Avanti Brahmin, and we hear about other examples also of great kings. They don't, Jadabharat showed it to some extent, that he wasn't affected by when he was almost killed by the dacoits who offered him in sacrifice to Lord Mahakali. So Kali herself came to his protection. And
Uh, I have a just an, sorry, I have a doubt actually regarding one thing because I want to know if like people who are not on the path of Krishna consciousness, but let's say they're highly devoted Christians, Muslims,
yeah,
they're practicing Jews. Are they also like Krishna conscious in some way? Are they like more Krishna conscious? Are they more Krishna conscious than let's say a Hindu who doesn't believe in Krishna as the ultimate supreme being in some way?
it's
Like
it's possible because the level of their advancement and their understanding will determine this. There's no reason why they should not be, because the average materialistic Hindu who is considered pious, God fearing, who's been trained to have certain beliefs and not understand anything more, his whole connection with God is more like business, it's not bhakti. He's doing a deal, he will keep his side of the bargain, and he expects the Lord to keep the Lord's share to get him through this lifetime. And a lot of Hindus on the side also do demigod worship because they're not entirely sure that Krishna alone will work. So they don't.
like karma yogi type
That's right. These
situation.
are
Like,
the karmis or the karma yogis who believe karma is more than enough, but they don't really practice karma in the way it should be, which would mean more and more surrender or detachment from the fruits of the
detached
labors. They
person,
can't.
yeah.
They are not knowledgeable enough, or they've never tried to find out and to improve their understanding. So, if instead in a Christian or a Muslim faith, you have someone who's a lot more advanced in their understanding, then why should they not be actually closer to the goal than this average materialistic Hindu?
Okay. But also like like in their case they would be accepting Christ or Allah as their God. Would that also be acceptable like as a form of Krishna and Mansa? Because it's kind of like a dicey question to ask. Like
Right.
I wanted to know if that is acceptable like as a form of Krishna because like if you believe in devotional service like you will think like I've heard like some devotees say like I think Prabhupada I think at one some lecture they were quoting him saying that like Christ is also like he's like an avatar of Vishnu or
He's
Krishna
he's a
and
Shakti
he's
Avesh avatar.
Shakti Avishara. So
Yeah.
in that sense like if you are if you believe in that like if you come from a bhakti side then you'll probably it's easy to understand that. But if you are from a Christian, from the Christian point of view, or even if you are from like a Muslim point of Allah, you probably won't accept that. Like in one sense, you'd be like you'll be a little hesitant to accept it, even though it actually sounds very accepting and very nice to hear that. But from a Christian point of view, you might not accept. Like you might not say no, they're Christ is different. He's sort of unique. But like so in that sense, are those people like I mean the people who strongly believe in let's say Christ and strongly believe in uh, any other religion like their God basically like whoever believes in their God is that path is it less valid as compared to
Actually,
Krishna?
if
Yeah.
person is a genuine inquirer, sooner or later he will come up against certain limitations of what his religion is offering him and look beyond it. If he's a genuine inquirer. That's why Srila Prabhupada makes the statement even in one of the purports of the earlier chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. There is philosophy and there is religion, right? Philosophy without religion, he says it's armchair speculation or something like that. We can do a search for it. Religion without any philosophical understanding is just blind following.
Fanaticism like
Fanaticism, correct.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, people who in these other religions, faith just mentioned, who have been trained to believe that their, say, Jesus is the ultimate God for them, and if it's Islam, it is Prophet Muhammad. If they are one of those who are practicing religion without philosophical inquiry, the two have to go hand in hand. If they are
So
doing that,
then
then
it
if
becomes
they
like a
are not,
cult. It
yeah,
becomes like
they
a
are,
cult. You know.
yeah, then they don't break out and try to grow or try to find out little more. And the philosophers who are like reading, they've read the Vedas, they've read this, but they are not at all interested in that religious side of things. And this is just like armchair speculation. So both are required, and whichever religion they may be in, if the faith is genuine, the Lord in the heart is there, no matter what name you call him by. He's saying that he's there, even if the person in these other faiths doesn't even know this word Krishna or Paramatma or anything. So there is an individual or an entity inside next to the Jiva called the Paramatma, Jivatma Paramatma. So he is going to reciprocate. At some stage, he is going to reciprocate and open new doors. And that person may go through certain shock and fear that he's betraying his own faith, and may go through certain obstacles when he tries to discuss. But if there is genuine inquiry to know the Lord in his fullest form, they will overcome and start exploring new faiths. And you see, because it can't be that if that is not there, then they are actually no better than one of these Hindu materialists. They are no better than that. These Hindu supremacists and Hindu materialists. Because that
Yeah,
kind of religion leaves no room for any genuine inquiry and thinking.
yeah,
And it
because
just, yeah,
yeah, no, it's because there are a lot of like well-meaning, let's say, people of different faiths who like help people tremendously. Like, for example, like you take somebody like in America, you have somebody like Martin Luther King, for example,
right,
he was a Christian. He used to read the Bible every day, and
sure,
but he took inspiration from a lot of like he took inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi, who was also like a was very he had
right,
read the Gita and he also like not just that, but he fought for the rights of people who were people of color, not just black people, but of all types of people of color in America.
yeah,
And he led marches, and he and because of that, the black people were allowed to vote in America in 1965, I think 65, I think it was.
yeah,
And it paved the way for a lot of people of color to kind of have a voice and talk and all that stuff. So like, and he takes a lot of inspiration from the Bible in the sense that he says that a lot of the strength came from Bible. He doesn't just credit the Bible only. He says, he also says that he also met Gandhi and he met a lot of other great, personalities across the world.
personalities.
Yeah, he met a lot of people and stuff. But he also says that he got a lot of things out of the Bible where he kind of learned, a lot of qualities that he needed in order to like be an activist and fight for the rights of people and things like that. Now, so I
Yep,
was like wondering
blacks.
like that would definitely like I mean that obviously has it definitely applies to in it will apply the same thing we can apply to Krishna consciousness also like the idea of like um you know like fighting for what is right, fighting for the right cause or fighting for the right thing is definitely Krishna conscious ideal. So the people like and so people like him or somebody else like that, they are also kind of so that's why I was like, what the point I was trying to say was like they're also in one sense Krishna conscious without actually being directly Krishna conscious.
Just one qualification, one kind of, like you say, something that disagree with. It is Krishna consciousness, but it depends on what is their understanding. For
Hmm.
example, if someone who is an activist of the kind you said, fighting for a better world, has no conception a of how there is a difference between the temporary material body and the eternal soul. You may be black, you may be African, you may be white, Jewish, whatever. He has no conception or no knowledge at this stage. A, this is a major handicap for him for what he is fighting for in terms of selecting his goals or his ultimate goal. Two, he has no conception or does not accept that there is rebirth and that the soul continues its journey, in different bodies and different. Then these are two major drawbacks in his understanding. Because you think about it, the same Martin Luther King, after assassination, the junior one, he just carry on and the work that he did in another body with different. But if he doesn't know these two basic things, that's all nice. These terrible circumstances and unfair and unjust situations for certain minority groups have to go. That's great. He even got assassinated for that. That's fine, but there has to be some higher goal or something that he's aware of. If that this a temporary material body, one life you're black, another life you may be white. Does it mean, yeah, it's a much better world for the whites in one sense, but doesn't it really bring a permanent solution to their suffering? The same birth, death, old age, disease, same impermanence of life, everything afflicts them. The three modes control them. It's not as if you're not born black and born white, the three modes suddenly back off from you. It's not like that at all. So it is very limited, their conception and understanding. So however sincere and however how do you say honorable
So
their huge,
their
yeah,
knowledge is basically limited
it's
on one
limited.
side.
Yeah, it's basically very
But yeah,
limited.
but you can
Mm.
also you can kind of, but you can also at the same time sort of appreciate or have respect for that kind of
Oh
mentality.
yes,
Because like
certainly we
even
can have.
because there are people, like even I would say, like a lot of people within even the movement, or not, who know about the movement or don't know the movement, but they don't necessarily like act in the way that you should, because even Prabhupada in one sense had the same kind of spirit, where he not like almost like an activist kind of personality, where he wanted to go, and I think somewhere he made this quote in America, like I think, when he landed in the UK, somebody asked him, why have you come here? He said, I came here to make first class gentlemen, like first class gentlemen and gentle ladies, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Said I
Uh-huh.
came here, that is my purpose, because I wanted to create first class gentlemen. And he also had this idea of trying to help the world and make the world a better place, and trying to, and in one sense, like help people to reach this point in some way. So, but at the same time, like you said, knowledge is important, and because otherwise you get trapped in your own ignorance, or of what you don't know, like
Sure.
sometimes you don't, if like part of the reason why, the in the Indian independence freedom struggle, where India got its freedom from the British, India never fought a war,
Right,
and
right.
that's one of the reasons why Martin Luther King got his inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi. The whole
Uh-huh.
non-violence thing came from Gandhi, where you don't fight the British, you kind of, the whole idea of ahimsa and non-violence, and not fighting and things like that. Now that came from there, and you take
Sure.
inspiration from that and you apply it in your own this thing. But it's still like, it's like you look at Martin Luther King, like, if he's a special kind of human being, because I don't think, even if he's not even if he's not born as
Sure.
a Hindu or whatever, to do what he did is pretty, I mean, it's pretty amazing. I don't know
Extraordinary.
how extraordinary, like how it happened.
Because basically he thought about the issue which other people just took for granted and were happy to just let it be.
Yeah,
Isn't so it shows a much higher level of consciousness and awareness to realize anyway a person who is sensitive to an unjust, unfair situation, these kind of people always have a hard time in life. I know that because a lot of other people just don't see the unjust unfairness or don't want to get into it and are happy as long as they're in a safe situation. But someone has to have a lot of moral courage, like you're
yeah.
saying Martin Luther King, to stick his neck out for, I mean, to change the systems because it is so unfair. But so that shows a brain. And in one interview, when Prabhupada was asked, why have you come to the West? He's supposed to have said to give you a brain. That right now you have no head. You are just enjoying and making money, and then you're not thinking about anything. Basic questions: what happens after death? Where to go from here? What should we be doing with our material faculties? So, in a sense, activists like Martin Luther King are definitely showing what is that they have a brain compared relatively to the others. They think about these matters and they speak out, and like you said, they show backed up by courage, and they put their life on the front line at risk. It's definitely superior to so many others, and they need to be given credit for it. But that same idea of giving you a brain, giving people a brain, it's relative. Someone else may come with a more wholer and holistic understanding of what is what, and then they may be activist for that. Like there
Even
were,
like Mother Teresa in Bengal, she's got a, I mean, there's a lot of little bit of controversy behind her, but
yeah,
but she's given the Nobel Peace Prize for having done a lot of activist work in like Bengal during the, I think she helped like when there was like a leprosy scare
Yeah,
across Bengal, she was the one that was administering, helping people in that time,
sure,
and
sure.
she was managing that entire thing. So, even if there was some, like, something did, I don't know, people accuse of a lot of things, but if you remove that away, but if you just say, okay, if she did something good, then that means that, she's not a, I mean, she's a nun. She's basically, she was sister, and then she became a mother. She became
Right.
Mother Teresa after that, right?
Yeah,
So if she can do that, that's great. Like, I mean, if somebody can do that, it's amazing. Like,
sure.
so yeah.
To
Uh,
alleviate people's suffering is great, but if you go back to a reference point, that what is their ultimate understanding? Do they accept at all that the material body is temporary and it's always full of suffering? That doesn't mean that you have to allow lepers to just rot and suffer. That's not correct. That that you just say that anyway the material body is full of suffering, so let the lepers keep suffering. No. So what she did was remarkable. But it goes back to the fundamental question. If you're asking us to evaluate her greatness, did she deserve the Nobel Prize? Was she really as selfless as she's made out to be? Hard to answer it, but we just need, I mean, address the problem, not the person.
uh-huh.
Address the issue. What is the issue? She has a certain understanding, a certain worldview, on the basis of which she also shows a lot of moral courage, sense of sacrifice, and change the lives of so many. And the material world has reciprocated with that by canonizing her now, making her a saint, and before that by giving her, awarding her the Nobel Prize. That's fine. But if you go put that against the ultimate knowledge, what was really her understanding? Does she accept at all that there is something called the spirit, that it takes another birth, that the lepers that were suffering, it's very good she elevated their suffering, but that they were taking karma for previous lives, or whatever, different things. So we don't need to condemn these people. Definitely we have to give credit where credit is due, but at the same time we have to realize, just ask, were they at all searching for what is called the ultimate truth?
Were they seekers in their life? Were they seekers of knowledge
Were
in
they
their life? Right?
seekers? That's right.
So,
Were they
yeah.
seekers, or did they just recognize their role as this? And because the danger, if you are not a seeker and moving forward, if you just recognize your role, and okay, that's also good. You found your what is it called? Your mission within the mission. People speak like that now, even in ISKCON. She found what she had to do, and she did it and did it and did it, and that's all right. But then, how are the three modes? And they are not going to leave her alone. They will at some stage overtake, whether it is a desire for, I'm not meaning her specifically, but of her desire for fame, for name.
Mm.
These things are going to take the upper hand, because three modes are not leaving anybody alone. And I know personally, when I went to Stella Maris Chennai for 3 years, I was in college, my BA was there, I was in the hostel. The same hostel was a young girl from Jamshedpur. They were Mangalorean Christians. She was, I'm not going to mention her name because she's quite prominent now on Facebook, and she's now like, she has a family, but she's very much into theology and God and books and so on. All right, maybe I might as well say her name. You can look her up. She's Anita Matthias, Mathias. Now she came, as I said, Jamshedpur. Her father was a pastor or something, a Mangalorean Christian from a respectable family. She was a unusual character. I'm not going to say she was necessarily very pleasant or likable, but she was very ambitious. She won all the debate contests. She was not good with sports. She had a clear vision. She was going to Oxford. She was very clear she is going to excel in some way. She never left her Catholic faith. She was very clear she was going to marry her cousin, and everything she did, it is one of these rare cases, and everything really worked out beautifully for her. Now, she had a stint in Mother Teresa's nunnery. At some stage in her life, when she was looking for more meaning, I think after her 12th, she insisted and she was adamant. Her parents were heartbroken and very frightened. They put her there. She didn't last more than a year or 1.5 years. She left, like she went from being a great admirer to being someone who left with disgust at the lack of hygiene, at the lack of common sense hygiene, at the, what she would call, the egotism or the egoism of the people in charge at the top. that they wouldn't take any alternate viewpoint, as often happens, that no dissent was allowed, no discussion, no feedback. Today it is a culture of feedback. What's your feedback? What is your experience about? So she went really from being someone who had surrendered to this mission as what is it called, the missionaries of,
Mission,
yeah, Mary of,
missionaries of something like
is
missionaries of
that not Saint
just
Francis? FMM is different. Franciscan Missionaries of Mary, that is different. This is whatever is
missionaries
that.
of charity.
Wish-
Missionaries of charity.
Okay,
Missionaries of charity.
Sisters of Charity or missionary. That's right. That is,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. This is all
founder
Nirmala.
of
This is them. Correct. Yeah. So she went completely in the opposite direction and she just quit and left. And then she joined. So that was the closest I've come to coming to know what goes on inside. At the same time, there was an IAS officer in Delhi whose wife was connected with the National Museum where I served. This Mr. Chawla went on to become a great admirer of Mother Teresa. He was a Punjabi Hindu and he wrote a biography, a fairly authoritative biography of Mother Teresa. Now, what moved him can't be just because he wanted name and fame. He was already a secure IAS officer with a good career and family money and all. I'm not sure. He was Naveen Chawla. Look him up, you will find it. His wife was Rupika Chawla and she was an art historian and known to me. And Naveen Chawla wrote this big thing about Mother Teresa. This is him. This is Naveen Chawla. I think he's still alive and around as far as I know. So he went very much into this and interacted with her and wrote here. There is his book about. So they will can appreciate or not appreciate someone like this depending on their level of understanding. But over and above all this is our fundamental question that we need to ask, which is a religion without any philosophy, and is philosophy without religion, then both are in danger, because the three modes are going to keep doing their work to pull down such a person, bring in egoism, bring in the mode of passion, competition, greed for fame, and so on. But and what is their understanding? If their knowledge and understanding doesn't accommodate the fact that this material body is temporary, it's anyway full of suffering, or that there is rebirth, which I think the Christian religion does not accept at all. It is just one birth and heaven or hell. They have no explanation for why people suffer or how we are making our own destinies and bodies for the future. They don't accept all this. And nor is she willing to seek anything beyond because of this, nor was she, or I mean, because of this narrow approach. So I think that's the way. We don't attack the person, but we look at the whole issue or the problem and then try and relate it with what we see as ultimate knowledge as given in the Bhagavad Gita.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty good.
It's almost 6:20. Let's stop here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Good.
much.
All
So
right.
we'll end the meeting at this topic.
Okay.